40 miles from anywhere that mattered, Redemption Springs sat like a broken promise in the New Mexico dust. Wind carved through empty streets where tumbleweeds held more authority than any living soul. Saloon doors hung crooked on rusted hinges. The general store's windows stared out like hollow eyes, watching nothing, protecting no one. Once this place had a name worth remembering. Once it had law. Then Mason Cord rode through with his gang of 7 devils, and the sheriff made a choice every decent man understands but no brave man forgives. He ran. Just climbed on his horse at midnight and disappeared into that vast, indifferent desert like morning fog. Cord's men took what they wanted, the bank, the land deeds. The daughters of honest men who could do nothing but swallow their rage and pray for mercy from a God who seemed to have abandoned this particular corner of creation. 3 months of hell. 3 months of watching the horizon for help that never came. But someone was watching. High above the town, where the red rocks twisted into cathedral formations and the sun hammered down with Old Testament fury, a figure moved through the stone shadows. His duster coat the color of dust itself, his hat pulled low against the Greenland light that turned everything amber and gold at dusk. A Winchester rifle slung across his back like judgment waiting to be delivered. His name was Elijah Cross, though names meant less than actions out here, where the nearest marshal was a week's ride, and justice wore whatever face was strong enough to claim it. He'd been tracking Cord for 2 years, through Colorado, through Arizona, following a trail of burned homesteads and shallow graves. But tracking wasn't enough anymore. From his perch in the rocks, Elijah watched the town through a battered spyglass. He saw Mary Catherine Wells carrying water from the well, her eyes down, her yellow dress dirty. He'd seen her before, in a tin-type photograph clutched in a dead man's hand outside Santa Fe. Her father. Good man. Cord had shot him for sport. She didn't know someone was watching. None of them did. But Cord was about to learn that in the untamed places of this world, where law evaporates like water on hot stone, sometimes justice finds another way through. Sometimes it arrives on horseback, alone, in the gunmetal light of dawn. Dawn broke cold and clean, the kind of morning where you could see 20 miles in every direction and still miss what mattered most. Elijah descended from the rocks as light bled across the desert floor, turning sand to copper and shadows to ash. His horse, a steel-gray gelding that knew the language of silence, carried him into Redemption Springs just as the town began its fearful morning ritual. He tied his horse outside the saloon, pushed through the doors. Inside, Cord sat at a poker table with 3 of his men, whiskey glasses catching the slanted morning light. He was a big man, barrel-chested and cruel-eyed, with a smile that promised violence. "We're closed," Cord said without looking up. "I disagree." Elijah's voice was quiet, dangerously quiet. The room held its breath. Cord's eyes lifted slow, assessing this stranger with the kind of calculation that had kept him alive through a dozen range wars. "You lost, friend." "Found exactly what I was looking for." "And what's that?" "Mason Cord, wanted for murder. Theft. Crimes too long to list before breakfast." Cord's smile widened. His men shifted, hands drifting toward their guns. "You a lawman?" "Just a man who's been watching, waiting for the right moment." 3 against 1, bad odds for a hero. Elijah's hand hovered near his Colt. "I've faced worse." What happened next took less than 6 seconds, but would be told around campfires for 20 years. Cord drew first. His men followed, but Elijah was already moving, sidestepping, dropping, firing 3 times with a precision that spoke of endless practice and older grief. 2 men fell. Cord took a bullet through the shoulder, his gun clattering across the floorboards. The 3rd man froze, hands raised, then ran for the door like salvation itself was on the other side. Silence descended. Smoke curled. Cord pressed his hand to his bleeding shoulder, face twisted in pain and disbelief. "You're finished here," Elijah said. "The territorial marshal's on his way. I sent word 3 days ago. You'll stand trial, and these people—" He gestured toward the street where faces now appeared in doorways, hope flickering back to life in their eyes. "They're done being afraid." Mary Catherine stood in the saloon doorway, tears streaming down her face. "Who are you?" Elijah looked at her, and for a moment his hard expression softened. "Someone who owed your father a debt. He saved my life once, in the war. Didn't know how to repay it until I heard what happened here." "You did this? For him?" "For him. For you. For anyone who's ever needed someone watching when they thought they were alone." The sun climbed higher, burning away the last shadows. By noon, the marshal arrived with 6 deputies. By sunset, Cord and his surviving men were in chains, heading toward a justice that would finally, mercifully, be served. Elijah prepared to leave, but Mary Catherine stopped him at the edge of town. "Stay," she said. "We need a sheriff, someone who'll actually protect this place." He looked back at Redemption Springs, at the people emerging into their streets like survivors of a long winter, at the hope rebuilding in their eyes, brick by careful brick. "Maybe for a while," he said, "just until you find someone permanent." She smiled. He smiled back. And in that moment, in that dusty, broken, beautiful town, redemption meant exactly what it promised. Thanks for staying to the end of this tale from the untamed frontier. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below and don't forget to subscribe for more stories where justice rides alone and hope refuses to die. Until the next story, keep watching.